A tea bag is not the best way to prepare Gyokuro tea. You may find Gyokuro tea bags being sold online, but this tea in particular should be prepared in a teapot. In this video, we're going to test out Gyokuro tea inside a tea bag and show you why loose leaf really is the way to go. Before we get started, it would really mean a lot to us if you could like this video and hit subscribe so that you could learn more about Japanese green tea. There is so much to learn about in the world of tea, and we have hundreds of videos on all sorts of topics. For now, we'll stick to the Gyokuro tea bag. Let's get started. Okay, so I have a bit more of a complicated setup today. I have my Kyushu teapot, I have my Gyokuro Sasahime, I have a spoon, I have some dishes, I have some glasses here, and what I also have are these tea bags. So these are unlike the tea bags that you might get at the store. They're actually empty, and these are commonly found at stores around Japan. It's actually a tea bag made out of silk, and you can fill it with whatever you want. And so this is a perfect thing to use for this experiment because I can use the same tea in the teapot and the tea bag and kind of show you how the space of the tea bag itself can affect the flavor of the tea. So for this I'm using Gyokuro, obviously, and the reason why Gyokuro makes such a big difference is because the leaves are even more tightly rolled. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is try to measure out the same amount of tea. Okay, 1 spoonful there. Probably a little bit extra there, but we can use that for the tea bag just to keep things fair. So this is probably approximately around 5 grams, which is what you would use for a cup of Gyokuro. And so if you look at the needles here, they're very large. So they're tightly rolled into these needle shapes, and this is going to make a big difference when the tea is infused into water because it's going to expand a whole lot. And when the leaves are expanding, you really want to allow space for them. And that's why the teapot here is so important, because it provides a lot of space, even more space than a metal strainer or a brewing basket. And the tea bag actually provides the least amount of space. Now that being said, we do sometimes use these tea bags when we're traveling just because it's an easy way to get good quality tea or decent quality tea without having to worry about the strainer or the teapot or carrying all that around or hoping that we end up at a hotel or something that has all that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is fill this up with leaves. Let's see, this might not be so clean here, but do the best I can. So what you're going to do is you're just going to fill this tea bag up with the leaves. We have the same amount here, and then to fold it up, there's no seal or anything. It's just you're just folding it in, tucking it in here. So now there we have a nice little tea bag there. And so this is something you can do if you're traveling. You can just pack a few of these. Let's say you're going for 3-4 days. You can pack 4 tea bags like this, and then even if you don't have a strainer wherever you're going, or you don't want to bring a teapot, personally I wouldn't want to risk breaking this just to have tea for 3 days. So you could take these tea bags instead, and then wherever you are, you can prepare them. So I'm going to go ahead and move this out of the way. This here. Put this in the cup. And then I'll prepare the teapot. So now, using 60 degrees Celsius water, I'm going to use about a cup for each. So I'm actually going to measure it out here just to keep things fair. It's about a cup. Okay, so we're going to brew each of these for 2 minutes. That's kind of the recommended time for Gyokuro. If this were a normal sencha, I'd only do about 1 minute, but because it's so tightly rolled, I'm going to give it a full 2 minutes to open up. So maybe we can take a look inside the teapot, there's not a whole lot happening quite yet, but you can see the leaves are just starting to open up. So they're starting to get a little bit bigger. You see some floating to the top there as they fill with water, and then once they fill with water, they're going to sink down. So a lot's happening in there, whereas with the tea bag, the leaves are starting to expand, but they're going to hit a wall very soon, and they're not going to be able to expand a whole lot more. And to keep things constant, I'm not going to agitate the leaves too much. So one reason I'm not doing this is because it's actually going to release some of the bitterness. But the other reason is I want to keep the experiment fair. And you know, if I didn't move it around at all, what would happen to the leaves? But you know, if you're preparing your own tea bag, of course you can dip it if you want. I just want to kind of keep everything consistent here. And then I'm going to move this over here. Try to keep it as still as possible. Okay, so we're going to give it about 30 more seconds. I can tell you a little bit about this tea. This is the Gyokuro Sasahime. It's a beautiful Gyokuro tea from Mr. Sakamoto, shaded for 3 weeks before the harvest to really maximize the amount of theanine, the amount of sweetness in the tea. It's made from a blend of the Okumidori, Sainidori, and Yabukita cultivars. So it's really got a lot of complexity in terms of the flavor. Hopefully we can experience that here. Go ahead and pull this out. I'm going to let it drip a little bit. You see that at the bottom there? That's really, as I moved it, all the flavor kind of came out all at once. Give it a couple shakes just to be fair, because I'm going to do the same thing with the teapot. So there's the Gyokuro. Here is the teapot. Starting out very clear, but I think that the color is going to change very quickly, because the most flavorful part of the tea is going to be poured out last. And we'll give it 4 or 5 shakes. Keep things even. So you'll notice the color difference is pretty strong. It's not significant. I mean, it's not huge, but it is significant. This one's much cloudier. When it comes to Gyokuro, what you want to look for is like a cloudy tea. That usually means that it's got some sweetness to it. So I'm going to go ahead and take a sip here. Teapot. Very rich in flavor, very sweet, very complex. I'm getting a little bit of this floral note that I've been noticing with the Gyokuro Sasahime. And I'm getting some sweetness, some, I would say, steamed edamame. Yeah, with this one, even though this silk tea bag is very neutral compared to like a plastic or a paper tea bag, I still notice the taste of the tea bag. It's a little bit dusty, unfortunately. So that's another reason not to use the tea bag, is because the tea bag itself can influence the flavor. So just something to watch out for. The flavors are much flatter, less complex. It still is pretty sweet though. So if you're using really good quality leaves, this actually can be a good way to travel with tea, because the tea's gonna still be pretty decent. Let's take a quick look at the leaves here. As you can see by this bag, you know, again, this is a very good tea bag actually. Probably one of the better ones, because it does allow the leaves a little bit of space to open up, but they're still going to be kind of confined to this bag and not able to fully open up and release their flavor into the water. So better than a normal tea bag, but still it has some room to improve. And if we compare that to the teapot here, you see the leaves are going to be clustered together because I'm pouring them out. But just give that a little shake there. You see they have plenty of space to move around, to swim through the water, as some people like to say, and really release their flavor. Go ahead and take a little. You can see like there's some wrinkles on this, which indicates that it's at one point was tightly rolled, but now it's fully opened up. You know, that's the beauty of the teapot. Whereas if I were to open this up, a lot of the leaves are going to be cramped and not fully opened up. Let's see if I can do that here. Yeah, you see, look carefully here. You see they're still densely packed. You know, even though they're not in these tight needle shapes, they're still densely packed. And so that's why you're not getting quite as much flavor from the tea bag. So when it comes to preparing Gyokuro tea particularly, Gyokuro is probably the most important because it's the most significant difference because the leaves are so tightly rolled. You really want to prepare it in a teapot here. So I would recommend either the black Tokonami Kyusu is probably the best for Gyokuro, but if you want sort of an all-purpose Kyusu teapot, I would recommend the red Tokonami Kyusu. So this one's going to come with a built-in circular metal filter that's going to help deal with you know, some of the leaf particles that you might get with a fukumushi or something. Whereas this black Tokonami Kyusu is really specially designed for, you know, sencha, gyokuro, things like that. So definitely, if you're traveling, feel free to use this tea bag setup. It is a good alternative to having to buy tea at a cafe or something, or, you know, use a tea bag you get from a store. Definitely 100 times better. But if you're at home, I would recommend using the Kyusu teapot. You're just going to get a much richer brewing experience. You're going to get more infusions from the leaves, and just like a better overall quality tea. So thank you all so much for watching this far in the video. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. And until then, we'll see you next time.